OK, strap yourselves in, because despite Rishi claiming that he is stopping the boats, the RAF Wethersfield site is now set to become home to 1,700 fighting-age males. I'm sure that the locals are ecstatic with this news, but to add to this, some military families living there have been given less than a week's notice to leave the premises in order to make way for these asylum seekers. It is nice to see that the government cares so compassionately about the families of those who are willing to risk it all. Isn't it just brilliant? Come on, you don't see this in the adverts, do you? You don't see this in the adverts for our military. Come and join our armed forces. Yeah, we'll teach you new skills. We'll teach you all sorts, and you can fight and die or lose a leg in battle for this country, and then we'll biff your family out of accommodation for people who come from countries where we might have just sent you to fight, unchecked, no idea who they are, or really exactly what their criminal record is, and then we'll let them live in your missus's house. Braintree Council have fought the decision every single step of the way and are appealing the recent ruling in April. Joining me now to discuss this is the Conservative leader of Braintree District Council, it's Graham Butland. Graham, thank you very, very much. Please tell me that this cannot be true, that we have military families being biffed out of accommodation for young illegal immigrants.
The first point I must make is that this is the issue of military families is not an issue which involves Braintree District Council. But I can confirm that the Home Office and the Ministry of Defence have been in touch with local families, local military families currently on that site, to move them to new accommodation, which they say will be closer to their duty, to where they carry out those duties. But the actual removal of those families is not an issue which Braintree District Council has played any part in. No, I understand that, absolutely, and you're right to make that clear. I don't think anyone is saying for a single second this is your fault or this is the council's fault. This is the fault of the situation that we're in at the moment, and that is a massive, massive problem. But nonetheless, it is happening, and whether or not they're turfed out and made homeless or they're having to move home, still, they are going from living somewhere to not living there anymore, and a group of people who have potentially just arrived here are going to be living there. It does seem as though, frankly, that is deeply unfair. Well, there are issues that arise from this. Of course, some of these families have children, so there are issues about the schooling of those children, having to move from one school to another. And this is just one of many issues that, as a council, we have been raising in our discussions with the Home Office about this plan to use this site, which we as a council have consistently maintained is not the right place for the type of provision that the government wishes to make. So what are some of the problems? What have some of these good British military families been saying to you? Well, in terms of what are the problems with this site, it's an isolated site. It's in the country. It has no public transport. And clearly, the facilities basically are very much as they were when the US forces left that base many, many years ago. It's not going to be a detention centre. It's a place where asylum seekers will be free to come and go. Free range. There's not many places you can go from this place. There's no public transport, as I say. The nearest, largest town is Braintree, which isn't a huge town. And that's some 10 to 12 miles away. We don't think it's the right place for it. We have been battling with the Home Office through the courts. Unfortunately, the courts have not granted us an injunction, and neither have they determined a key issue, which is the government is relying on something which is called Class Q. I won't go into the details, but basically what that means is that the government is saying this is an emergency. We do not, therefore, need to abide by planning with the local authority, and we can just go ahead and do it. And we reject that. Yeah, they're claiming it's an emergency. I mean, if it is an emergency, it's an emergency of their own making. But when it comes to the families, what are they saying to you? We've just heard there from you something that I must admit I hadn't considered before, but it kind of makes me even more angry, which is that you've got children who will be living at sites like this, going to schools with a life, who will probably end up being traumatised, possibly, certainly massively discomforted by having to move to a different school to set up a new life somewhere else in order for us to prioritise people who we quite possibly don't even know
what convictions they have in foreign countries, which is staggering.
Well, I'm not going to use that sort of language about the asylum seekers that are coming in. They will need to be properly processed. In terms of the families themselves, clearly they are military families. They are used to moving from one military base to another. And as far as the direct contact between those families and the council, there has been none, because they're not being made homeless, which would be the only occasion, if you like, when someone would come to us as the local housing authority to assist. The council has been assured that these people have been properly contacted by both the Home Office and the Ministry of Defence. But I cannot give you any evidence that has either taken place or not taken place.